Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Casual Sports Podcast. As always, Alek, Koberna. That's Mike Wolfgang. And the idiot over there in the corner is, as always, Matt Morrison. Mike, how's it going? We weren't on the show yesterday. How are things with you, man?
Yeah, it's same old stuff.
Yeah.
Same old stuff. You guys held it down.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot of sports to go into today, so let's not waste any time, Matt. Oh, I guess maybe not, Matt. We got to go into what happened last night. The shocker of pretty much Thursday night. Liberty girls basketball finally goes down 13-1 now on the season. They lose 53-46 to Matt's Brookfield girls team. Incredible matchup, but Stars just didn't align that night for Liberty. They came out cold as ice in the first half, got in foul trouble immediately. Seems like if these two teams come back in the playoffs and meet up, that's the matchup that we're going to want to see, Matt, isn't it? Liberty.
Oh, absolutely. I want to see part 3.
Yeah.
I missed part 1. I want to see part 3. Oh, my goodness. What a game this was. Alek, you're sitting right next to me. I'm like, oh, my gosh, my heart's
we were jumping out of our chairs the entire time. That game was electric. Then you get the second half. Sienna Smith gets the green light for Liberty. They start trailing, and then she just launches them up from Steph Curry range, literally just launching threes from the logo. I talked to Coach Watson. Apparently, Sienna practices those, during practice, so she's used to just launching them up and them going down. She went 4 of 5 for 3 in that final.
That one was like a half-court one.
Yeah, and one was the buzzer beater half-court shot that missed. So. And I think she was a little late on the release, so I'm not even sure it would have counted anyway. So in my book, she went 4 for 4 from 3 in that second half. And Coach Watson after the game was just like, hey, if we had played like we did in the second half in that first half, this game would have been a very different outcome. We just came out and we weren't playing our style of basketball. And they're back in action on Saturday against Bristol, 1 o'clock game on YSN. They're going to have to jump back in the win category because they're going up against another team that's pretty good. I mean, Bristol is 12-2 right now. They're going to come with a vengeance, but I don't know if I'd want to be Bristol right now coming in here against a flaming hot Liberty team who coming off their first loss. I'm very interested to see how they react. I feel Watson's going to have this team ready to go, and they're going to come out with a vengeance in this one. Bristol, they just lost to Garfield as well, who is a team coming up on Liberty's schedule as well, so probably a good test to see there. And non-conference game should be the pretty much last one of the season as well for this Liberty squad. Very excited to see what happens. But yeah, Matt, your Brookfield team, they got round 2. You got bragging rights here until round 3 if he gets to the playoffs. But series tied 1-1 on the season. I mean, I have a feeling these are the two best teams we have right now in terms of how they match up against one another.
Oh, they are. Oh, my gosh. Physical
I don't think
play
any two teams match up better.
I don't think so either. These two teams are both physical. You have Demi Watson, who's physical for Liberty, and then Reardon and pretty much Hook, too, that are physical for Brookfield. And Wellman, too. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, they have shooters.
But, Matt, it seemed like in that game, every time one team did something, the other one came back with an answer immediately. There was a little bit of a pull away at one point by Brookfield. Liberty closed that gap, though, coming back the other way, and it didn't take them too long to do.
And we really saw this
every time something good was going one way, something good went back the other. These teams, literally just everything, there was an answer for it on the other side.
We really saw the supporting cast. Yeah, we really saw the supporting cast in this game, too. Mackenzie Jumper for Brookfield, and then, how about Weatherly for Liberty?
Matt, also, in this game, the top 3 players, on the floor, all fouled out. There was no Sophie Hook, no Demi Watson, and no Sienna Smith. It was left to – luckily, Liberty had a big 3, but Aaliyah Foster was pretty cold in that second half. She just wasn't finding the basket. She's really great on the fast break, but Brookfield was keeping up with her the whole time, and she was the reason they won it last time with Demi off the floor. She just I don't feel like she had enough support this time. There were a lot of open shots that were missed by a couple of her teammates, and obviously it's a team game. The team lost. It was no individual that caused the loss for this game. It was a total team effort, and it really didn't even feel like it was that terrible of a game. Brookfield was just better that night.
Yeah.
And
they came in there with that sourness in their mouth because of the last game, and they really put it to them. I was talking to their coach Ken Forsyth before the game. He's just like, "We're just here. We're ready to play. I know what I'd studied this Liberty team." He said he knew what he had to know, and they came out and did that. So
yeah, they definitely did. Coach Watson before the game even told me, hey, we're not invincible. Anybody can come out here and beat us on any given night. We just have to be the one that wants it more. And that night, Brookfield wanted it more. I mean, I think you saw it with every ounce of energy and sweat they put into that floor. It felt like from the time they won the tip-off, they were ready. They wanted that game. They needed that game. And it kind of felt like, Watson even said, we were 13-0. I think we may have gotten a little bit cocky. We thought, maybe we're a little bit better than we were, but, a loss isn't going to hurt us. A loss doesn't define the season. It's one game. We won 13 others. This one's not going to kill us. It's not taking us out of the playoffs. Last time we made it to district finals, we were 15-8. I got no problem saying we can do that again with this team.
Yep. It doesn't matter what your record is.
You got to be there come postseason.
You got to be there.
And, this team, they're pretty much in prime position to be there.
Same with Brookfield, too.
A lot at this point to knock them out. And, I mean, there's not a ton of games left. I think there's 5 or 6 left until we have playoff draws. And if they lose all of them, there's a chance they don't make it. But, I mean, so long as they keep up their winning ways, Liberty's going to be there in the playoffs, Brookfield's going to be there in the playoffs, and Garfield's going to be there in the playoffs. I mean, those are probably the big 3 teams in the MVAC Gray that I think we're going to get there, and Champion might actually be in it as well.
Yeah, Champion, pretty good team on there.
We got a Power 4 coming out of the MVAC Gray is what it seems like. These top 4 teams, they're ready for battle, man. Any one of them could win it. I mean, I honestly feel any one of those 4 teams coming out of the MVAC Gray tier could make it to states. Unfortunately, only one of them can because they'll all have to knock each other out. But I think there's definitely a chance there.
Well,
remember, for those first few rounds of the playoff as well, home team gets, or the higher seed gets home court advantage in that one. And I think that's the biggest factor as well. If we see Brookfield Liberty round 2, is Liberty will have home court advantage most.
And I'm coming. I don't care if I'm calling it or not. I'm coming to watch.
Definitely.
That'll be exciting, Alek. I told you when that Liberty gym's packed for boys or girls, it gets pretty electric.
Yeah, and I got one final message from Coach Watson to the fans out there of Liberty High School. She just wanted to say thank you for the support on the season. These girls are ready for it. Come on out and cheer for us down their final home stretch. So they got 4 home games coming up. So I'm expecting a packed arena. If no one out there listening has gotten a chance to see this team in person, now's your opportunity, man. They got 4 games coming up in this next week and a half or so, including Saturday. I mean, it's a 1:00 game. Ain't nobody got anything going on Saturday at 1:00. Make your way down to Liberty High School. It should be phenomenal. Liberty versus Bristol.
Up the road from here.
Right. 3 combined losses between the 2 teams at this point in the season. This might be a better matchup than Brookfield, honestly, with the way these 2 teams mark up on paper.
Yeah, it could be. But, hey, come out my way on 1:00 on Saturday. I got the Brookfield I got the Badger girls playing. So then I got the boys that night, too. So if you want to come
everyone knows it's
Kinsman.
Liberty or bust. All right, well, let's move it on here. NBA preview before we get into the NFL here this weekend. We got 4 NFL games coming up, so we got a little bit more time to work with on Fridays. Regular season, we were rapid firing through the second half of the NFL games, but we don't have to do that here. So let's get it in here. NBA first game up for us, 8 p.m. tonight. Toronto Raptors, Washington Wizards. Toronto took the first matchup back in Toronto earlier this season. But both teams, I mean, they've both been playing very solid basketball. You love the young players right now of this Raptors squad with Scotty Barnes. I mean, he's having a fantastic season. They're coming off back-to-back losses, but, with Pascal Siakam, Precious Achiuwa, Fred VanVleet, and OG Anunoby with Scotty Barnes, and Chris Bousher, by the way, all these guys are coming off of a game that they lost by 4 points, but all but one player who played in this game had double-digit points. And I think that's the most amazing stat you can see off of a team is they're so well-balanced it almost hurts them. Because I don't think they have that guy at the very end of the game who's taking that shot and is committing to be the guy. Because it felt like when Pascal Siakam got handed the reins from Kawhi, he didn't want to take over that one spot. He liked being that secondary option who can play off the smaller guard and can find space underneath because the defense is collapsing in and preventing, the main scorer from getting in there and opened up lanes for Pascal. And I think with the introduction of Scotty Barnes, the more he gets involved in this offense and, OG Anunoby and Precious Achua, the more these guys are working with one another, I think the better it's going to make Pascal. And I don't know if this is a team right now that can make it to an Eastern Conference Finals, but if they continue to improve, I got no problem, say end of the season, if you see some improvement out of this team in the way, and if they can find that number one guy, that they could be there in the Eastern Conference Finals, because they're so balanced, and in the playoffs, balance is key.
Yeah, and with both these teams, the Wizards and the Raptors, they're kind of in the same boat because you didn't expect a whole lot with the Wizards this year, but that return they got for the Russell Westbrook trade, it's meshing pretty well for them. And they're 8th in the East, Toronto's 10th. I didn't really see Toronto being a 10th seed. They're still fighting both of them are fighting for a position right now in the play-in tournament. We see if they make a run. But Alek, don't forget we have the trade deadline coming up in the next month or so. So if the Raptors can get somebody, the Wizards can get somebody else.
That trade deadline's gonna make.
Well, I guess
the Wizards have pieces they can try to get for another big time player to go.
Well, let's bring that up. Who should Toronto go for? I mean, who's
tough.
The best system fit? Because I don't really know if there's anyone out there that fits the way they're playing. Because I feel like they need somebody fast, athletic, but can shoot outside.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe that's the one part they're lacking a little, is that outside shot. And there's not a ton of guys that can bring you that consistent shooting from the outside that you can easily get at a trade deadline. I feel like they'd have to give up too much to bring in somebody that they can fit. I think maybe if you were to find something else, a big centers, a 7-footer in there to lock it down with Pascal, because I feel like if their defense improves just a little bit, they're going to be winning a lot more games because they have a lot of size. They have the ability to score. They have a lot of speed. They can shoot. But you almost feel sometimes maybe they don't have that defense. I mean, Boucher and Pascal are phenomenal, but sometimes you do need a guy like, I'll say Andre Drummond or Dwight Howard or JaVale, just to lock down that middle.
Yeah.
Or Jared Allen, who obviously isn't going to be available to train, but somebody like that who it makes an impact on the inside. And honestly, I would say maybe try and make a deal with Sacramento to get Tristan Thompson. I mean, he dominated them in the playoffs.
That would be a good deal.
They know what he brings to the table, and I think for them, having a guy who obviously also is great at those outlet passes as well in the fast break, playing with guys like Kyrie and LeBron and Love who can just, chuck it down the floor on a moment's notice. Thompson's good at that too. So maybe that's the deal to go to, a guy like Tristan, to get him out there, make some impact on the defensive side. And offensive rebounds, second chance points are phenomenal to have in basketball, and he's one of the best to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
And it's the same thing with the Wizards too. I mean, they have a lot of pieces, like I said, that they acquired in that Westbrook trade. So if they want to make a run, get up higher in the standings, who do they have that they would like to, feel comfortable getting rid of to try to get another?
Who would have thought Kyle Kuzma would be better than Russell Westbrook this season?
All the guys in that deal. I mean, KCP's playing good for them. Montrezl Harrell, we know what he brings with energy. I said at the beginning, I thought that was a better trade for the Wizards than the Lakers.
I thought it was a terrible trade for LA. I mean, the fact they gave up,
I thought it was great for the Wizards,
Kyle and KCP.
Yeah,
I don't know. I never liked what LA was getting up to bring in Russ, because I didn't think he fit that system, because him and LeBron are too similar in the way they play. They're both guys that want the ball in their hand, and you've seen it. Russ has just got benched.
Yeah,
he got benched on the Lakers. He's their third best player, and he got benched.
And I remember when that trade first happened, my dad was like, he's like, that's a good trade for the Lakers. They got Russell Westbrook. But I was like, Dad, they gave up a lot. They gave up a lot of their guys that were actually contributors for them. KCP started. Kyle Kuzma was a young guy off the bench.
Top 7 guys.
Yeah, and it's proving so far, because it's just the Wizards got more balance getting those 3 guys, because they're all 3 good players. And they balanced out the roster. Last year, they just had Russ and a bunch of other role players with Bradley Beal. They're a much better team now.
And, I think the biggest part is that defense improved a ton. I mean, you get Montrezl Harrell, who's amazing defensively. I mean, he's just a menace down under. He's not the biggest guy. He's not going to grab the boards. But I'm sorry, I don't want to drive against him. They already have Daniel Gafford, a 7-footer with the 7-foot wingspan. I mean, that dude's a freak down under to swat shots away. They're getting Kuzma in there, who obviously is the best defender, but he brings, a few things to the table. And they already have Denny Avdia and Roy Hachimura, who are both pretty much 6'10".
Yeah, so and again, don't forget about some of the guys
they
did
went up.
Yeah, like some of the guys they already did have before that trade. So they're a pretty balanced team. They're pretty loaded. They can go deep too. They're one of the deeper teams.
I think either one of these teams, Raptors or the Wizards, are legit contenders to make an Eastern Conference Finals appearance. I don't know if I could say Finals appearance for the teams we have right now at the top of the Eastern Conference, but I definitely think pretty much everyone on this list here in the top 10 outside of Boston Celtics have a chance.
All right, here are my teams that I think that can make a run. Obviously, the Wizards, I wouldn't be surprised. They're down near the end. I don't believe in the Celtics. Raptors, maybe if they can get somebody. Cavs, maybe could. Hornets, I could see that happening. I don't really trust the Sixers, but obviously the Bulls, Heat, Nets, Bucks. I mean, this Eastern Conference is pretty good.
You just named every Eastern
the
Conference
best
team.
Eastern Conference has been.
No,
I would say
there's a couple I don't believe in. I don't believe in the Celtics.
I like what the Heat is doing. I like what Chicago's been doing. Obviously, Cleveland.
I don't trust the Sixers.
I don't trust the Sixers or Boston. I like what Washington has been doing. Charlotte is hanging around there as well. I like to see what can happen with those teams there. In Toronto, I mean, they're young. I mean, Kyle Lowry was there for a long time. He's now in Miami now, I believe. But I mean, they had those main guys for a while now. After Lowry left, they kind of had to start, like you were just talking about who their leader is. It was Lowry. Now he's gone. So once they figure that out, I think they'll be well on their way, honestly.
And guys, the difference between this Eastern and Western Conference this season, it's pretty dramatic because you have a heavy top in the West and a pretty terrible bottom out there in the East. Everyone's pretty much even. I mean, you're talking about right now the 12th seed in the Eastern Conference is just 9.5 games back from first place. That's one good run on a season, and they're sitting in first place, and that's the Atlanta Hawks. So it's a team that can definitely do it if they figure out how to play a little bit.
They just traded Cam Reddish away.
Right.
They just traded
Alek too. Don't forget. The Raptors are the 10th seed in the East, and they're 500. They're 21-21.
Yeah.
Who's the 10th seed in the West? The Trailblazers. They're 18-26.
Right.
And
they're 17 games back from first place.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's just the gap we have right now, and it's pretty incredible. And you talk about you kind of look at what would this team be if they played in the other conference, and you got teams like Cleveland, Milwaukee, Brooklyn, and the Heat. They'd all be sitting in 5th place. So the top of the West is still dominant. Don't forget how dominant that top piece is, from the Jazz to the Grizzlies to the Warriors and the Suns. All those teams right now, they would be first place in the Eastern Conference. So the top of the West is great, but the bottom half is weak, and that might hurt these teams come playoff time because they're playing a lot more games against weaker talent. And less balanced teams, I'll say. Not weaker talent, because everyone's in the NBA. They're all phenomenal. But I think it's going to hurt them not having those tough games all season long like you're getting right now in the Eastern Conference. I mean, every game is a battle. If you're talking in the Western Conference, the Grizzlies going up against, say, the Clippers, I mean, you kind of feel confidence that the Clippers aren't going to be able to keep up with the way they're playing. But then you have the same seeds in the Eastern Conference with the Nets and the Wizards, and that was a 1-point game on Wednesday.
Yeah, but we'll see if the Clippers, once they get guys back, because they've had Paul George out. I don't know when Kawhi's coming back, but that's coming. And look at the 5th seed, too. Dallas is starting to heat up, too. I think they won like 4 or 5 in a row or 6 in a row or something like that. So
always got to pay attention to Dallas.
All right,
I'm serious. I mean, you got to give them credit.
I am. I know you're serious.
Hey, man, they got Luka. He's top 10 in
Jersey. Win a couple in a row.
Like top 10 in scoring. He's a freak. You love
I'm saying because they started out bad and they ripped off like 5 or 6.
Well, we were writing them off pretty early in the season. They were one of those teams you went, oh God, that's terrible. Now they're up to a 5 seed. So
yeah, and we'll see if they make a move, because outside of Luka and Kristaps, I've said this going back to last year, who do they really have that they can count on when one of them gets hurt? Because when Kristaps is hurt, like as always, it's just Luka. So let's see if they can get somebody else too.
All right, guys, we got to make picks here. Raptors versus the Wizards tonight, 7 p.m. As much as I like the Raptors, they've struggled a little bit on the road. Wizards have played better at home. I'm taking the Wiz here on tonight's game.
Yeah, I got to go Wizards, too. I like the draft pieces they got from Russell Westbrook. Kuzma, I think, is working better there in Washington than he ever did in L.A., so I got to go. I got to roll with the Wizards.
Mike?
1-point line in this game, too. It's going to be a close one. Or that's what they're saying, at least. I always try to keep looking at these injuries because, with COVID and other injuries, there's some guys out. Gary Trent's out for the Raptors. Some other guys are out for them, so I got to go Wizards as well.
All right. Good stuff. Here in the NHL first game, Dallas Stars, Detroit Red Wings. These two teams, I mean, they're pretty even right now in terms of what they've done. Red Wings, though, I'm worried about that defense. They've allowed 130 goals on the season. So I think going up against Dallas, who we know can score pretty well tonight, they've scored 107. Their defense not great either. And you want to see a little bit more out of this team because they were doing good earlier in the season, but they've started slipping down. They're almost last place now in the Central Division. I mean, they're not going to fall to last because Arizona's got that thing locked up in last place. But I think this is a really great game. And statistically, the Red Wings are the better team when you talked about like points and stuff. But to me, I still feel Dallas has the upper hand in this one. I'm taking Dallas in it, Mike.
Mike, go ahead.
I'm gonna go Detroit just because I like the year they had, and they're starting to bounce back too, man, which I like. And
I like Detroit too. I do.
They're not playing as well. I mean, they lost like 4 or 5 in a row. They just won their last 2. I feel like both these teams are on the same level, so I'm gonna roll with the home team and go Detroit. I've always kind of liked Detroit, so.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go Detroit here, too. I like the way they bounced back this year. I know their defense isn't there yet, but it's going to be very soon, I hope, hopefully. But I like the way they've been bouncing back. And, so I got to roll with them. Dallas is kind of in that slump right now.
Okay, well, I guess I'm the only one going
Detroit.
with Dallas here. And surprise, surprise, Mike doesn't take Dallas.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
well, I get yelled at for taking them all the time.
That's why he picked Detroit.
No, I actually like them in this game, but
all right, boys. All right, we got one more NHL game. That's why we went through the first one fast.
I'm not going to make any pick with Dallas. I'm just going to let it go. Don't ask me next time,
guys. It's your team, Pittsburgh Penguins at the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight. Should be another phenomenal game. I mean, this Pittsburgh Penguins team, Mike. How many games have they won out of their last 20? What was it? What was that?
16
last night. No, 14 out of their last
16.
Okay, that's what it was.
Their last 16 games. Unbelievable. They almost let that one slip through their hands last night, Mike. Oh my gosh. They're up 5-1, and here comes, who they even play.
And guess who closed it out with to get their 6th goal? Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, Sidney Crosby, baby.
6-4. And I think you guys would expect me to go Blue Jackets. They're the home team. They're the Ohio team. But I've been taking a lot of losses on the NHL recently. My formula has kind of been breaking a little bit. It's been okay. It hasn't been as reliable. And this Penguins team, they're so hot. I mean, 14.
They're deep too, man.
Go ahead and make your pick.
If you're in the sports world and you don't pick them, you're an idiot. So I'm taking the Penguins.
All right. I think this is the first time on tape that Alek Koberna picked a PA team over in an Ohio team.
Especially Pittsburgh, but PA in general.
Pittsburgh.
Yes, I think that's the first time I've ever picked. Well,
might be the last too.
I don't remember who I would have picked earlier in the season when the Bengals took on the Steelers.
I think you picked the Bengals.
I picked the Steelers both times. Talking about your team. I'll go look back.
Oh yeah,
I got them all.
Go ahead, Matt.
Well, I'm picking. You know who I'm picking? Going Pittsburgh.
Well, yeah,
they're right there. That race is so tight, Mike. They're tied with the Capitals again. They're 1 point away from second place, and I think they're 3 away from first. They're right there. They're gonna have a big run against these bad teams coming up. Nothing against Columbus, but I think they got Arizona coming up next. Let me check here.
No, Columbus isn't a bad team, but after that, they got Arizona. I think on Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday. I think Winnipeg's coming up. They're not terrible, but they should beat them. Seattle stinks.
We should beat them.
Red Wings are good. We just talked about that. Then they got the Kings again. Hopefully they can bounce back to them because they lost to them. But then they got big games after that, Matt. They got the Capitals after that, the Boston Bruins. Seattle, the Senators.
That's going to be some big games right there. The
so
Boston
it goes from bad to good.
Capitals game are going to be huge games that they have to pick up wins.
But you got to love the way they're playing because they're getting it from everybody too, Matt. I talked about last night. They got a closeout from Sydney, but earlier in the game, they're getting production from all these young guys we've been talking about all year, and it's good to see because you have to have depth, especially in this game, and because the Penguins do get hurt a lot, and it's good to have depth, especially from young guys.
They really do get hurt a lot, but Jake Gensel is having a career year. 39 points, 21 goals. Chris Letang, old man, stepping up, 31 assists.
It is the first time on the show that I have picked a Pittsburgh.
I knew it was.
I had to check back, but the first Steelers-Bengals game was before we moved on to YSN's network. So I don't have record of it on my stat sheet I got here. I did not record it before we moved on to YSN.
Matt, I talked about Gensel or Crosby getting that goal late last night. Gensel had one. Malkin had one. They had, Simone had one, and then Mike Matheson. How about Mike Matheson? 2 goals last night.
Matheson's sweet. And I like Simone, the defensive guy, scoring. I like that. I like to see the defensive players score. You don't see that a lot. You don't see Chris.
And 2 of them
score. Yeah, they can score. So defense, when your defensive players can score, that's dangerous.
All right, guys, let's move on here to the NFL. We still got a decent amount to get through here, so we're almost halfway through the show. We can't do all NBA and NHL today. That'll be coming. Don't worry, we'll get time to go into that at a later date once the NFL's wrapping up. But we got playoffs, baby. It's playoffs.
Playoffs?
Yeah, we got huge games. We got chances.
We only got 4 left, though. We're getting down to the end.
I mean, this is divisional playoffs. A chance to go to the
playoffs.
conference championship is on the line here. I mean, these are the biggest games of the season here. So, coming down to it, first one up, Bengals versus Titans. Cincinnati 0-7 all time in road playoff games. I think that's a huge stat. I think it's one that might get broken, though. Return of Derrick Henry, I think, is the biggest storyline we're getting out of this playoffs, though, because the Titans had the first round bye. They got Derrick Henry back in practice. I think it was yesterday he rejoined the squad, and it feels like he turns the tide in this game because I feel like without Derrick Henry, I think the Titans probably don't have much of a chance here, but he always gives them that chance. And I say that because I don't think Ryan Tannehill's that great of a quarterback. He was 24th. This offense was 24th in passing. They were a run-first offense, and you saw Derrick Henry after he left. He's still top 10 in rushing yards on the season. He would have finished near 2,000, 3,000 yards, potentially. We're talking about an absolute maniac of a season of what he could have had. And I feel like Tannehill isn't that guy. He definitely stepped up and he played great. There's no denying that. He held his team in and got them to where they are now. I mean, they wouldn't be a first round bye without him. But at the same time, have you seen them Bengals? Have you seen them Bengals?
Yes.
They're hard to pick against right now.
How about them Bengals?
How about them Bengals?
Their team right now, man. I mean, they got two number one wide receivers with Higgins and Chase. They got Joe Burrow, who's killing it right now. They got Joe Mixon, who is top 4 in rushing yards, and he's killing it. This Bengals team, they're that team, man. They are that good. And, that's
good
without even going in to their tight ends with Uzama as well. So they're just phenomenal, and I want to see Joe Mixon play a great game. We know the best back out on the field is going to be Derrick Henry, but I am concerned with the fact that we don't know if he's going to be fully 100%. We know he's probably going to play, and he's going to play good, obviously, because it's Derrick Henry. He doesn't slack off, but at the same time, is this going to be the same Derrick Henry who left half the season ago? It's been a long time since he's played on the field. I don't know if we're going to see the same Derrick Henry that was looking like the MVP, running back of the year, rushing leader, rushing touchdown leader, pretty much God in cleats, as we saw him earlier this season. I don't know if we're going to get that same guy back, and that's what worries me the most right now is I feel like Tennessee is going to lead on Derrick Henry, and if DH isn't DH and he's not hitting home runs, it's going to be all Cincy because their offense is too explosive.
But you got to keep in mind, he's been out for 2 months. Derrick Henry, and they've had some different guys, and they've learned how to run the ball without him. So if he needs to come out because he's fatigued or that foot's bothering him, I'm not going to sit there and act like they can't still run the ball because they've done it for 2 months without him, and they beat teams like the Rams without him. They beat teams like the San Francisco 49ers without him, so they can still do it. They're going to run the ball, and they're 12-5 for a reason. They're number 1 seed for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I gotta give them credit. They get to the number 1 seed, without Derrick Henry. But I mean, the momentum is riding with the Bengals right now. I mean, look at them. I mean, look how horrible they were last year. Now look at them. The momentum is all with Cincinnati. I know Derrick Henry. That's the questionable right there. But it seems like if he's not playing very well, they can just go to what they were doing without him, and they should be fine, right? But I don't know. It's kind of hard to pick that.
And, Zach Taylor, that head coach, he's one of the guys we're going to come out here in the next week or so after the season wraps up and come out with who we think should be, all the award winners throughout the league.
Coach of the year, yeah.
Coach of the year is Mike Vrabel to me.
This head coach for
Vrabel,
Cincinnati, Zach Taylor, he's got potentially my pick in this game with just the way he's worked with multiple rookies out there and turned them into superstars in pretty much 2 years. I mean, he turned a team that pretty much everyone had written off and turned him into a Super Bowl contender.
Nobody's ever even heard of this Zach Taylor until, he joined Cincinnati.
Right. He was hired by the Bengals. That is not a high-end coaching position to go to. They don't have, an indoor training facility. Their facilities, just aren't great. I mean, it's an old stadium. They get new jerseys, cool, but this team was in shambles when he got them 2 seasons ago or 3 seasons ago, whatever
he was a quarterback's coach
at
for
this
the Rams.
point, right, and he didn't even get all last season to work with his quarterback, and now he comes out and just goes, boom, let's go. Welcome to the NFL. This is the Cincinnati Bengals. And, I mean, Zach Taylor, to me, he's the reason they're winning this game because he's perfected this offense with Cincinnati. I'm taking the Bengals.
I'm not saying you're wrong with that pick at all, Alek, with Zach Taylor, but you could flip it with Mike Vrabel because, having Derrick Henry out.
Those are my top two. I mean,
all of these running backs.
We can't, take playoffs into account here.
Right.
If we do, I mean, I think this is the game that solves it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see. But to me, it's Mike Vrabel. I don't really think – again, I can see Taylor, but I don't really think it's an argument because you've had Derrick Henry out, who's one of the best players in the league. He's had running backs that really nobody's ever heard of that have held a fourth down, and they haven't really had the receiving core healthy together throughout the whole year with Julio Jones and with A.J. Brown. And that's kind of had an effect on Ryan Tannehill's play, and they still managed to get 12-5, win their division, and get the number 1 seed. So credit to them. I'm going Titans.
So who are you picking?
Matt, what about you?
I've been riding high on Joey B this whole year. I gotta stay with the Bengals here. I gotta go Bengals. I like the Titans. I do. This is gonna be a good game, but I mean, we don't know what to expect from Derrick Henry. We know what to expect from Joe Burrow. I mean, we've seen what he's done.
Matt, keep this. And I'm not saying you guys are wrong. This is a hard game to pick because I think both teams are playing good.
It's very hard to pick. I don't know what's going on.
Let's not act like Joe Burrow. I know he just had his first playoff win, but let's not act like he can't be stopped in the playoffs.
I know.
He's still learning.
But he's beaten teams that look like weren't going to be stopped.
Raiders,
like Kansas City.
Raiders barely got in.
Kansas City. I mean, in the regular season, he's beaten teams.
Again, you're not wrong.
People are like, wow.
I'm not saying you're wrong, but I got to roll with Titans.
I got to go Cincinnati.
Hey, I think the one thing we know, Derrick Henry can be stopped in the playoffs. It's happened before. It's going to happen again.
Spillane.
I think maybe that's the one thing that we're overlooking is Derrick Henry's been here before. He's not the reason this team wins or loses. He puts them in position to win. At the end of the day, they got to fall back on old RT up there, and sometimes he doesn't pull out the stops too. So I think that's another part to look at on this one. But I think maybe one of the most interesting stats coming out of this: only one team last week that was the higher rated seed lost, and it was Mike's Cowboys.
Of course.
So at the moment, it looks like favorites are winning out. So that might be the one thing to go with is the Titans are the 1 seed. Based on what we've seen so far, it's the Titans' game to lose.
Yep.
All right, Matt, you said you're going Bengals?
I'm going Bengals.
All right, next game here, Mike, is the team that beat yours, the 49ers, going into Lambeau and freezing temperatures against the Green Bay Cheeseheads, the Packers, the number 1 seed. But Aaron Rodgers 0-3 all-time in the postseason against San Francisco.
It's changing.
You talk about one of the oldest matchups in the NFL. This is one of them.
How about this too? With San Francisco, especially last week we get Dallas and San Fran. That's an old school rivalry from 90s, 80s, whatever. Now we're getting them against the Packers too. We're just getting old school rivalries in this playoffs, and it's pretty cool.
Not to mention the last time these two teams saw each other earlier this season, 30-28, Green Bay narrowly won that one.
Yeah, so it's a good match. I think that was in San Fran too. So.
This
one's in Green Bay. But, did you see the temperature for this game? It's going to be -6.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be tough for San Fran because short week, they're traveling to Green Bay. They're not playing in their elements. Some of these guys, it's hard to play. We know about the weather. It's hard to play in the cold weather when you're not used to it. And Green Bay's used to it. They always get it. And I think they were talking to Matt LaFleur about this game. They were like, it's going to be -6. And he's like, doesn't feel like cold. This is Green Bay. We've had worse than that. So they're just kind of downplaying it.
Yeah, I mean, I saw them at practice, and they ran outside, and they went, "Oh, this ain't even cold."
Yeah,
yeah. You know what? Go you. I was cold walking on campus today, so.
Oh man, I was freezing.
Yeah, yesterday I was on campus.
I was like, you know what? I might just want to stay inside. I came back, made myself a cup of hot chocolate, and I've been sipping on it here because you know what? I like
it's cold.
It's
That's how
cold.
I felt yesterday when I was on campus.
I'll admit it. It's cold.
It was freezing yesterday. I was like, why am I even at this place?
Oh yeah, it was. Poor yesterday. It's going to get worse this week. But going into this game, man, I think there's a couple of interesting things to bring up. The Packers haven't won a playoff game versus the 49ers since the 2001 wild card round. Quarterbacks at the time, obviously the Packers were Hall of Famer Brett Favre. And then on the other side, Jeff Garcia was the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo, this might be the most important stat out of everything we talk about during this game, is how Jimmy G plays on the road. He is 20-6 all time as a starter on the road, which is the second highest win percentage in the NFL since the 1970 merger, including playoffs with a minimum of 25 starts. So he's one of the best road quarterbacks we have. And to go along with that, Aaron Rodgers is 11-9 in his career as a starter in the playoffs, 7-8 since they won that Super Bowl in 2010. As much as we talk about the Cowboys being, the best choke artist in the league, Aaron Rodgers is right up there with them. To me, if he can't finally get back to a Super Bowl, I think his status as a top 5 quarterback dwindles.
First of all, before I get to that, that's not even
it's already starting to dwindle.
At least, I know it's only been one, but at least Aaron Rodgers has won a Super Bowl. Cowboys haven't. At least he's been in NFC Championship games. Dallas hasn't been in one since I've been alive. But
it just feels like
they would have been.
Every time he gets there, he just can't close out.
You're right.
He's getting there. That's better than Dallas. But at the same time, it's like a top 5 quarterback in the NFL history would win that game.
But here's the thing. I know we kind of said this last year about him, but I don't know if this could be his last year in Green Bay. It could not be. This has to be his best chance to at least get back to another one or win it, because look at his skill group. It's just ridiculous. You got Adams, he might be the best receiver in the game. You got Valdez-Scantling and Allen Lazard, and your 2 running backs are freaks. They could start anywhere. And they're getting healthy, too. They're getting Bakhtiari back and Jair Alexander on defense. So they're getting healthy right now, and it's a good timing.
Yeah, well, I'm taking Packers in this one. I'll say my pick right there.
Oh, I'm taking the Packers, too.
It's going to be another physical one.
I don't care what the record is. They ain't coming into Lambeau and taking this. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, we're taking a California team at a -6 degrees. I know a lot of these guys have played in cold weather before, but it's different come playoff time in Lambeau.
I still think it's going to be physical. With that energy. That's what San Fran does, and in the weather, it's going to be freezing. It's going to gear towards being physical, and I think it's going to be that one, but I think Green Bay's going to overcome it.
Yeah. All right, well, next game up for us, the Rams and the Buccaneers. Tom Brady, 14-2 all time in the divisional round. This game is probably the best game to look at. I mean, Bills-Chiefs will be good as well, but I think when you're talking about what the Rams have done this season and what the Buccaneers have done this season, these teams feel like they were destined to go up against one another, and I'm so intrigued to see what Matt Stafford does, because we're going to see him go up against his team. Second time this season. They won by 10 last time, and Tom Brady has 9 straight divisional round wins dating back to 2011, which is the longest quarterback win streak in any round in NFL history. So this is Tom Brady. It's the postseason. This is his time to shine. But Tom Brady has never beaten the Rams since he's joined the Buccaneers.
Well, first time for everything. You know who I'm going with, man? TB12. TB12. It's the playoffs.
It's the playoffs, baby.
It's a playoffs.
So you got Matt on Tampa. Mike?
I'm gonna roll with Tampa too, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous. Because
I'm a little nervous
their offensive line is beat up.
Brady.
Their offensive line's beat up, and you have Aaron Donald and Von Miller on the other side. And we saw when their line was kind of healthy in that Week 3 matchup, they still got kind of dominated. But there's a lot of guys that are out. I mean, I expect Leonard Fournette to play. I expect Levante David to play. These are guys that are questionable. So I expect those guys to come back. So I think it's going to be –
What are you doing in there?
Uh-oh, he turns back on us. Anyway, I still expect it. I know they're beat up, but it's still Tom Brady, man. I expect him to outperform Matthew Stafford. I do.
Yeah, it's still Tom Brady. It's Brady.
As much as Tom Brady, he's the GOAT, unquestioned. No doubt about it.
You're going to pick Matthew Stafford over
Hell yeah, I'm taking Matthew Stafford.
Are you kidding me?
I'm taking Matthew Stafford.
Matt, he's not wrong.
I'm taking this.
He's got the weapons now.
Defense. I love this Rams team. We have been high on this team all freaking season, and y'all going to give up on them just because.
I haven't been. I never liked them.
What?
I didn't really say much about the Rams at all. I don't know about Matt.
I've been talking great about him all season. And just
to
say, they're going up against the GOAT. Buccaneers, take them. Nah. You look at the records of this team. 1 win separates their records. 1 win. And you're going to – and people want to go, 2 seed versus 4 seed Buccaneers. Right it and done. But go in depth on this one. Go in depth. Go down to strength of schedule. Tampa Bay, one of the 5 easiest schedules in the entire NFL. And you know where the Rams are? About middle of the road, about 13th. About 13th in the NFL. And you're telling me 1 win separates those two? Not a chance. Give me the Rams. They've had tougher competition.
They're flashy. They made the Cardinals look like crap.
By the way, they're having Stafford in one of the greatest seasons of his career. They're getting Cooper Kupp in the greatest season by any wide receiver ever. And OBJ has lit it up so much so in the last 3 games. He has 6 touchdowns that they had to give him a PED test to make sure this man wasn't going off on steroids. Oh, and he tested negative for that, by the way. This team has hit everything right at the right moment. Give me the Rams in this one here.
But I'm just saying, Tampa Bay's defense, they got healthy. They're starting to play better at the end of the year. And you see when Matthew Stafford has starting to throw picks later in the year, especially against good defenses. So I trust Tom Brady more than Matthew Stafford.
Don't matter. Stafford's coming out. He's going off.
All right.
Well, I think we know who pretty much everyone's taking in this one up here. Bills versus the Chiefs. This game, I think it's weird to take because I feel like we all have had so many question marks about this Chiefs team, but at the same time, they're still the 2 seed. They're still 12-5. They've absolutely lit it up to finish out the season with the best offense and best defense, in the final, I think, 8 weeks of the season it was. But the Bills, they've had this phenomenal play all season long. Oh, and they just murdered the Patriots so much so that it might be the New England era out of there because they just got destroyed.
Go ahead, Matt.
I don't know who to pick in this one. I'm not going to lie.
You know who I'm picking.
We know who you're picking. We know who Mike's picking because he's got the hat on. I'm the one dark horse here.
I told him to wear that.
I got no clue.
Yep. Break out the tables right now. I'll break a table right now.
You have to wait till they win the Super
that's
Bowl.
how I'll make my Super Bowl pick. Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Bills, definitely. I mean, look what Josh Allen has done. I mean, you completely dismantle the man who's been controlling this team for the past 20 years in Bill Belichick. And they have the momentum right there. They can play in cold weather. They can play anywhere you tell them to play. Now they're going into Arrowhead Stadium. Last time they played the Chiefs, I mean, they beat them 38-20. I know that was probably not the Chiefs team we are seeing now, but the Bills, that's not the same Bills team we are seeing now. They have gotten significantly better than that game, and they still won by 18 points.
Yeah, that's
Devin
true.
Singletary, if he runs possessed again, and Josh Allen throws like there is no tomorrow, 7 touchdowns, I think that's what it was. The Chiefs won't even have a prayer. They won't even have a prayer.
I don't know about that.
I know about that.
Mahomes is going to be there. You can guarantee
that. Still Mahomes. They still have freaks on offense, and they're still at home, too.
And so will Micah Hyde when he picks them off at least once. I'm going for it. Micah Hyde will have an interception.
The teams matched up. I mean, the Chiefs did struggle in this game, and I definitely think Mahomes probably has a few struggles again. I don't think it's enough to count him out of it by any stretch of the imagination. And, I didn't know who to pick here, so I went on to wheelofnames.com, typed in Bills and Chiefs, and I spun the thing 4 times. 3 out of the 4 of them told me the Bills. So I'm going with Bluck here. I'm taking the Bills in this one. I wasn't confident with it.
Did you really do that?
Yes, I did. I let a spinner make my picks for me, so we'll see how it goes. I mean, Bills killed them last time, 38-20. I guess I'm hoping for a repeat now.
Both teams are really different than that first matchup early in the year.
Yeah.
Chiefs weren't themselves. Bills were hot at that time, then they cooled off. Now they're heating up again. It's a collision course right now because both teams are really are playing good. Obviously, they won their playoff games, playing good late in the year. But I feel like this is Buffalo's year because I told you, Matt, earlier in the week. I told you earlier in the week. Remember last year when they lost in the championship game and
Diggs that picture?
They remember that too. They remember that from the first game they played early in the year, and you obviously have to remember that because you're back in Arrowhead. And I got another question for you guys. I saw us on ESPN. Do you guys look at this Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes matchup kind of like the modern day, Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning, or do you think it's the best quarterback matchup because they played a lot so far in their their careers?
It could be.
I don't think we're there yet.
Is it in that
like
direction?
Brett Favre versus.
I think it's going in that direction. Yeah. I mean, I think this is going to be a playoff matchup we see for years to come.
Yeah.
I think it's probably a little bit more Breeze Rodgers than anybody with Brady because I feel like either one of these guys might end up as the best of all time, but I feel like they're going to play second fiddle to somebody who is, and that was always Breeze and Rodgers. They were always second fiddle to whatever Tom Brady was doing. I don't know if one of these guys is going to be the best of their generation or not. I'm still waiting to see. I got a feeling this is a little bit more like Rodgers and Breeze battling out in the NFC playoffs.
But Rogers, though, he could be one of
this matchup in the playoffs for years to come. You know that.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm going with it. It's just you're going to see this a lot more than you ever saw Breeze going up against one of those other guys in the NFC. Obviously, Peyton Manning saw a little more because he was in the AFC, but that's my argument on that side of it. But we got to move on here. College basketball preview. Got a couple games to go through here. 14 minutes left on this show. First game up, potential upset. Kentucky Wildcats going up against the Auburn Tigers. Tigers on a 14-game winning streak, but this Kentucky offense has found a rhythm, man. They scored 107 6 days ago against Tennessee, a ranked Tennessee at that, and they did cool off a little against Texas A&M, so I am a little worried about that one going on the road here into Auburn, Alabama. Should be a phenomenal matchup, though, between these two teams. 17-1 Auburn, they're number 2 in the AP polls, and obviously they were pretty high up in our rankings, sitting number 2 there as well. I think both these teams are phenomenal. If Kentucky wins, without a doubt, I got them top 5 probably next week.
Oh, yeah, you can't – there's no doubt about that. I mean, Kentucky, like you said, their shooting is, forming. But this Auburn team, I mean, honestly, they look like the number 1 team as of right now.
Honestly.
They really do.
I think they win this really one, they're my number 1.
Oh, absolutely.
I like them better than
no matter if Gonzaga wins or not. They're my number 1 if they win this game, because this is a more tough battled game than Gonzaga will ever play again until March Madness.
That's definitely a key part of it as well. Is Gonzaga pretty much is waiting to see what everybody else does. They've hit number 1 on our rankings pretty much just because they haven't really lost recently, and everyone around them did as Purdue went down again as well. Like I had Auburn back and forth, but I picked that Indiana jumping them up over Duke in Gonzaga.
Yeah, but
I mean, you look at Auburn right now, last 5 games, they have scored 80-plus points in all 5. That's phenomenal. And, they're doing it all shooting 45.6% from the field. It's not great. I mean, but their defense, 8.5 blocks per game, 10 steals per game. They're winning this thing with defense, and that's why they've been dominating the SEC. I'm taking Auburn in this one.
I got to go Auburn, too. I'm rolling with them. I think Kentucky's going to give them a game. Kentucky's a solid team. If they win this game, definitely top 5 automatically. But Auburn's on the roll right now. I got to stick with the Tigers. So,
I'm going upset city here.
Oh.
I like the way Kentucky's playing. I was watching some halftime shows last night. They weren't playing, but they're talking about Kentucky. John Calipari, a team like this, they're flying under the radar, and I think they like that so far. And it's not something you can usually say about John Calipari Kentucky teams, other than last year. But they're not getting a whole lot of attention. I think they've accepted that, and I think that's less pressure on them in this game.
Well, I got a feeling who you guys are both picking in this next one, because it's West Virginia taking on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Matt, I got a feeling you're going WVU. Mike, you're going WVU. I'm taking this one, though. I like what they've been doing. They've really found a good rhythm. They've pulled off some huge games. I mean, they've beaten Kansas, Baylor, Oklahoma State, and Iowa State in 4 of their last 5 games. They did lose to Kansas State, who pulled off a shocking upset in that one because they're just 10-7, 2-4 in conference, and they pulled a miracle off at home. And I think this Texas Tech team right now, they're one of the strongest teams coming out of the Big 12, and I'm going TT on this.
I mean, I almost want to go Texas Tech here, but I like West Virginia. I do. I like what they've been doing. Texas Tech is a hard-boiled team, though, Mike. They're hard. If West Virginia,
they made a good run last season too.
Yeah, they always make good runs. I mean, they were in the the championship not too long ago.
Texas Tech, they were Final Four at least when they had Jared Culver and them guys.
Yeah, when they had Jared Culver. Yeah. I think it was like 2018. But
hard game.
I'm still going West Virginia here. I'm going to roll West Virginia.
I'm going to switch up and go Texas Tech. I don't like the way West Virginia's been playing. I like West Virginia a lot. But these last 2 losses, I know they were against a 5 and a 9 team, but they've lost 2 in a row. And this is another hard team to play. It's on the road too.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a huge part of it too. It's just it's on the road, going to Texas Tech. They've been playing phenomenal. It's a hard place to go into and win in that scenario. So one more game here before we hit a couple more for the weekend. St. John's hosting Seton Hall. and what should just be another great game out of the Big East. Both teams, they've really struggled in their last 5. I mean, both teams have lost 3 of the last 5. So I think both these teams are, on their way out of respectability for, main teams we're going to talk about. But both teams to watch out for come March Madness for the rest of the season. But, probably the last time we see these two before we hit March. I think whichever one we do that wins, we might keep them around a little bit here on the show. But with this game being in MSG, Madison Square Garden, should be a huge one to see which team probably finishes out better in the Big East, because they've both struggled. They both got losing records right now coming out of the Big East, and we've seen a couple surprises out of the Big East, and they're definitely a very strong conference. And I don't know which one of these two teams I'd probably go with in this one. I think I lean a little bit more towards St. John's for this. Just, I don't know. I like the Red Storm. I'm going to take St. John's in this game. It feels like a toss-up with the way both of them have been playing. Earlier in the season, I probably have no problem taking Seton Hall. But with the way both teams have struggled, I don't see one of these teams having that clear advantage anymore.
I want to go Seton Hall. I think St. John's they've lost some tough battles. They lost against Providence, UConn, Creighton. They beat Georgetown, but then they lost to Creighton. I think sooner or later they're going to pull one of these tough games off. I mean, they got Seton Hall twice, and then they got Villanova and then Providence again. I think they're going to take one of these Seton Hall games. So I got to go with this one. I got to go St. John's. Red
Okay,
Storm.
Mike?
I'll go Seton Hall just to flip it.
Yeah.
Why not?
All right, well, let's continue to move on here. More games going on tomorrow. The Baylor Bears in the Oklahoma Sooners. I think huge potential for an upset, except you've seen Oklahoma really struggle these last 5 games, last few weeks. 4 out of their last 5 with an overtime loss in there as well. But just a 3-point loss to Kansas. It was a bad game against Texas, and they lost this team earlier this season. I think because of that, I'm giving the edge to Baylor because they've already done it once. This one going back into Norman, though, so that could be a little bit of a tide turner. But at the moment, Baylor's still one of the best teams. I know they lost 2. They got a bounce back win, though, against Huggy Bear and the West Virginia Mountaineers, 77-68 just a couple nights ago. I got Baylor. I wasn't there to pick when they lost, so I got to roll with them continually because they really haven't hurt me yet, so I'm sticking it.
Mike, go ahead.
I'm sticking with Baylor, too. I still trust them.
I got to stick with Baylor here, too, as well. But, I mean, Oklahoma, look out. I know they slumped a little bit, but they're still a contender, so can't take them lightly.
Well, we're going to stay down here in the Big 12. The TCU Horned Frogs taking on the Iowa State Cyclones. The Cyclones, guys, they have really been struggling recently. I don't have as much confidence in them as I did, I would probably say 2-3 weeks ago. I mean, 3 out of their last 5 they've dropped. I mean, some tough games, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas Tech. 2 of those were kind of a blowout, but I don't know how to feel about this team anymore. But TCU,
I like them.
They've been okay. They've definitely
like
put up some good numbers. I mean, they're statistically pretty even with Iowa State, and they got less losses. So I definitely think it's potential to pull off the upset here. What do you guys think?
I'm picking it.
Oh,
I'm picking 2 upsets today. I like TCU. Like you said, they're 12-3. I think I saw it's 4th in the Big 12. We talked about how
12-3.
Yeah.
Yes, they are 12-3. 2-2 in their conference.
We talked about how tough Big 12 is, and that's pretty good to be 4th. And Iowa State's slipping a little bit. Not to say they can't win, but I why not pick an upset again?
They only lost by 12 to Baylor a little bit ago, and they lost to Oklahoma State by 1. So,
Who you got?
I'm gonna go TCU here too. I'm gonna pick the upset.
Hey Matt, I just found the winner of your award. We're coming out later. I'll take it over. We give that Meathead of the Week award. I just found out who won it.
Ooh, I want to hear it now.
Me?
Matt, who'd you take in this game, TCU or Iowa?
I'm going to take TCU here.
All right. Well, someone's got to take the favorite. I'll go Iowa State in this one. 2 more games, rapid-fire shots here. We have LSU versus Tennessee. I got LSU. Go Tigers.
Bulls.
I got LSU. LSU.
Mike, who'd you take?
Tennessee.
Okay. And Matt, you went with LSU.
Yeah.
All right, UCLA versus Colorado. Guys, picks on this one.
I like what Colorado did the other night. I'll pick them.
Me too.
They played good against USC.
Okay. Well, they still lost, so I'm taking UCLA.
I'm going to take UCLA too, but I think they're overrated.
Okay. Well, with that being said, I guess that brings us down highlights of the week, guys, here on the Casual Sports Podcast before we get into our final award. Matt, what's your highlight of the week here? I see you got
not freezing my butt off this week. That's my highlight. How I stayed warm this whole week. That's my highlight.
Mike?
I'm gonna stick with the snow date. We had the off day Monday because of the holiday. We had snow day Tuesday. And then I went out and made this guy on Wednesday.
Yep.
I named him Mobley, by the way.
Mike? Did you see my snowman, Mike?
Yeah, I saw yours. Yeah. I had to dress him up in the Cavs gear, so I had time to go out and make him.
I put my Cavs stuck in that. I'm less than that, man, but probably shouldn't show it on the show.
Okay. Well, mine's not sports related either. It was my 1 year anniversary, so that was my highlight of the week. So with that being said, we go from some highlights to some lowlights. This week's Meathead of the Week. This one goes out to Stephen A. Smith because he said something so freaking ironic. I almost started laughing here. I just saw this as one of the headlines going on. So you guys saw a couple nights ago, I think it was last night, Penny Hardaway, they lost to SMU, and he kind of lost his cool at the press conference. He went, y'all know we don't have our full roster. Stop asking me stupid effing questions during his press conference. And Stephen A. Smith today had the nerve to tell somebody else, just be cool. He was upset Penny Hardaway lost his cool. Coming from Stephen A. Smith is the most meat-headed, ironic thing I have ever heard come out of his mouth.
I don't think Stephen knows how to be cool, and he's telling other people to do it.
The guy is losing his cool every 5 minutes and has the nerve to tell somebody else, just be cool.
Again, here's the thing on Stephen A. I know it's a debate show, but, do you have to yell all the time? Just say what you want to say and get it done.
It is not a debate show. It's who gets to get yelled at by Stephen A. show.
And it's not a debate show. You're right, Matt. It's not, because I was watching.
They got tired of him yelling at Max Kellerman,
and he left.
They're bringing in other people now, like Michael.
They got a rotating cast because nobody wants to do it every day with him.
You know what the thing is? I heard this today, Matt.
Kellerman left and is doing his own show. It's way more successful.
Stephen A. was talking to somebody today. They were debating. I think it was Marcus Spears. They were debating, and every time they have somebody on, Stephen A. is like, "Oh no, you're wrong." Well, you're not always right. I mean. That's the thing that bothers me about him. That too, and him losing his cool all the time. He's always yelling.
And he hates the Cowboys.
He's not wrong with what he says about him, but
no, he's not always wrong with what he says. He's a pretty smart guy. It's just the way he delivers it, right? I mean, he's just always just to have the nerve to tell Penny Hardaway, just be cool. It's like, oh, come on. Take your own advice, Stephen A. As I'm yelling about it right now, of course, in Stephen A. fashion. Well, that is going to do it here. Week 19 of the Casual Sports Podcast over and done with. Signed, sealed, delivered. I'm Alek Koberna. That's Mike Wolfgang and Matt Morrison. Week 20 coming at you next week. And remember, you can watch us live now on the website on ysnlive.com under the shows tab. So wherever you're watching it from, if you ever can't find it, you can go straight through YSN to find us here 2 to 3 every day. Power Hour up next. We'll see you later.